Hugs and kisses to all my friends out there. This is your host, ID Jester. What's your story? So, welcome to part six of our How to Role Play series. Now we're getting deep and more involved in what's going on with your actual character. In this episode, we're going to talk about things that make up your character's personality. And why are these important things to think about? Why Why do we need to know all of these important things that make up our character's personality? Well, the reason for that is simply you are role playing someone else. So when that character gets into a certain situation, they will react much differently than you or me or anyone else because everything that's made up of their personality, their likes or dislikes, their history, their views on life, their views on the kingdom they live in, the views on how people treat them. All these things are going to be important to how the character reacts. And if you don't know what your character's personality is going to be like based upon these important things that go into it, then it'll be a little harder for you as a player to react honestly and truly in a situation for your character. So, this is episode six. So, guess how many things we have to talk about? That's right, six things to talk about that make up your character's personality. Just like you or me or anyone else, a lot of the same things apply. We are all different based upon what happened to us in the past, our upbringing, and all that information, where we lived, the people that we encountered, the views of our parents or our guardian, whoever was in charge of us when we were growing up. All those things make us who we are today. And it's going to be a lot of the very same things that make up your character. But these are things that you should think about. You shouldn't create a 20-page document for this. These are just things that you should outline for your character. In next episode, we're going to be making a character from scratch, using everything that we've learned throughout this series so you can see the process and kind of understand the process of creating a character for a role playing game, whatever genre you're playing, whether that's fantasy, sci fi, horror, mystery, whatever. So, six things to talk about that you should think about where your character, how these things are going to make up your character's beliefs, their ideas, their views on law, their views on chaos, their views on good, their views on evil. All these things make up what your character believes. And that is going to be completely different than you and what you believe and what you think. And that's how metagaming gets into the game is you are not playing yourself in this fantasy world. Now, yes, you can create a character that has your same personality, your same quirks, your same ideas, and all that. But that doesn't really help you in the role playing. Uh, why would your character believe what you believe? What drove your character to think the same things you think? You are a much different person than this fantasy character that you're controlling, this fantasy person. So, without further ado, let's get to number one. So, number one, and that goes with me and you and everyone else, is your location growing up or where you lived. Those things have a big impact on your beliefs, your feelings, your views on civilization, your views on good versus evil. So let's take, for example, we have a character that lives up in the mountains in the frozen north, up in the tundras, in a small tribe. They have to spend every day going out hunting for food just to feed his family or feed the tribe. They don't have much. Everything they have is very valuable, the things that they created themselves. You take that and you take a person that, say, grows up in a city. He's part of a very rich family that's a merchant. His father owns a merchant company. They have multiple warehouses. They have, um, different. They have different um, people under their. They've hired people. They're part of a company. They have, they ship things in and out. These two characters would view things very differently. You have one character that has abundance of stuff, and they have another character who has nothing, and everything he has to have, or everything that they get, is vitally important. So those two characters are going to have a different view based upon the location that they grow up in. So if you're, from a planet, if we're playing a sci-fi setting, you're from a planet that's very deserty and there's only a few civilizations on it, then you would have a totally different view than, say, a planet like Coruscant, where it's just industry and growth everywhere, and getting around is very simple. You go back to the character that lives on a desert planet, getting from one place to another can be very hard and troublesome, while another character that lives on Coruscant can go from one end of the planet to the other very quickly, and it doesn't, their views on just traveling are very different. So, location. This would also have a big decision on your views on law and chaos, and how you feel about that. If we take this hunter up in the frozen tundra or up in the mountains, and everything they have to work to get. The things that they do get are food for their family. Now, somebody comes along and steals his deer and takes it away, and he no longer has food for his family. Okay, that's going to be something totally different. He's going to have a different view as someone stealing his own personal food that's for his family. You take the merchant's son. If their warehouse gets broken into and they lose a couple shipments or a couple crates of swords or whatever it happens to be, these two people are going to have totally different ideas about what should happen, what kind of punishment should happen to someone who steals my food that I need for my family, as opposed to someone that stole a couple crates out of our warehouse. Uh, you know, so they would have totally different views based upon their location. Um, so yeah, those just your location can have an impact on how you feel about good versus evil. Is it an evil act to steal someone's food knowing that their family might starve to death in the frozen tundra because you've stolen their food? For that barbarian or that nomad, that might be an evil act. For the merchant and his family, someone that comes in and steals a couple crates of swords or torches or whatever they steal out of the warehouse, they're not going to view that as, oh, this is a terrible, terrible act. This person should be executed immediately. It's a couple crates of swords. We'll get some more shipments in. We'll just increase the prices of the other sword, compensate. It's no big deal. So you can see that based upon your location and your views, that can alter a lot of things about how you feel, not just about where you live. Do you enjoy living there? Do you enjoy the cold? Do you enjoy the desert? Do you enjoy, if you grew up on a desert, did you move away to get away from the desert somewhere that had plenty of water because growing up you never had access to water? So that where your location was can have a lot of impact on your character's views on things. All of these things will. So things to think about. Number two, and ultra important, as we already mentioned in the intro, your family. Okay? Your family. Who is your family? If the barbarian that lives up in the wilderness, his family might be his wife and his child, and that is it, because they don't have much. They can't afford to have lots of kids. Uh, there is, um, you know, live very long up there, so his grandfather and father all of his brothers might be dead. Maybe the barbarian tribes war a lot, so his brothers are all killed in the war. Whatever the situation may be. So, what is your family? Is your family important? So, if I was a child of a merchant, then yeah, my family could be pretty important. Obviously they're not royalty or anything like that, but obviously they have a growing business, they have lots of contacts, uh, you know, they're rather well to do. We have several houses, things like that. Is your family alive or are they dead? How big is your family or how small is your family? Another important thing to think about is where do they live? What do they do? If I'm a barbarian, maybe because our tribe is so small, there's only 40 or 80 of us in this tribe, or maybe 150, whatever, a small tribe. Maybe my father was a chieftain, and so I'm supposed to be next in line to take over the tribe, or uh, what what does your family do, and where do they live? Do they live where they currently are, where you're currently at? Do they live somewhere else? Have you traveled someplace differently? So a lot of things to think about when you're talking about just, family. It's easy to say, oh, my family this, my family that. But think about, well, how is your views going to be knowing that if I was playing that barbarian character from the mountains and my two brothers had died in the barbarian wars, I would have a totally different view on uh, fighting to survive than, say, the merchant boy who does, his family's well off, well to do. They don't have any, they've never experienced loss, they've never experienced any tragedy. Uh, Anything they could want, they can get. So, family, who's your family? Are they important? Where do they live? Are they alive? And is your family big or small? So important things to think about when you're talking about your character, because how is your character going to react to certain situations if you don't know some of this information? Again, we're not trying to create a 6 or 20 page dossier of your character. Some players will do that, and that's fine. But what we're trying to do is just get the general concepts of your characters here, the general concept of your family. We're not going to go into specific details. In fact, I don't like to have my players, excuse me, go into specific details right off the bat uh, until they learn a little bit more about the world, or they have more time to interact with the dungeon master or the game master to find out how is this going to play out. If my family's really big, um, and I've got lots of siblings, and my mother and father are alive, my grandfather and my grandmother are alive, and I've got an extended family. My brothers, 6 of my brothers are married. They have wives, and now their wives have got sisters, and so like literally, I know like hundreds and hundreds of people just because of my family. Obviously, that's a big difference than the barbarian who's got his wife and his one child, or maybe his father, and since he grows up in such a small tribe. So, just general overview of what your family is. How big is it? The size of it. If they're important, if they're not important, where do they live, and what do they do? Number 3, what things has your character already done before you started adventuring with your fellow players? What have you done? So, have you traveled? The barbarian that lives in the mountains, he can't afford to be traveling around. I've gone to Kingdom X and Kingdom Y and Kingdom Z. I've traveled across the Sea of Despair to go to the other side of the continent. Doesn't make sense. He's got to stay home and watch his, hunt for his family and take care of them. He doesn't have time to just go lollygagging traveling off. Merchant's son, Maybe he does have plenty of time to travel around. Maybe his father sends him on these business trips to try and get more, uh, more business for his, for his company. Tries to get more people interested in trading with them, or goes out and tries to find these rare finds and brings them back. So maybe he's done a lot of traveling. So you can see how things start to weave together when you start thinking about how your character location and family, and now we're talking about what have they done. Has your character done any studying or gotten any? How about does your character have any training or have they done any studyings anywhere? Right? Um, have you done anything important? If I am going to play a mage, have I done anything important? I have copied some of my master's spells into his spell book, or I've gone from this town to this town to pick up some magical something and others for my master, or what has you done? Have you done anything important? Have you done anything? Let's say I'm a mage, and I'm a budding 15-year-old mage, and I weaved the magic into a new spell. So I've created a spell, and now this spell, my master is now using this spell and teaching it to other students because I created this spell. And this spell is going to be named after me, and that would really add something cool to the story. If you're, obviously talk to your DM and make sure, there's interaction back and forth. When you come up with your character background, the DM might go, "Oh yeah, this is great. We can weave this in the story or something." Or you might look at it and go, "No, it's not possible. That's not, you know, the magic system in my world doesn't allow for this or whatever." So you're going to have to bend and twist your story around a little bit. But things to think about. Where have you traveled? Have you studied? Have you done any training? Have you done anything important? And this is super important when we're talking about things you've done. And I've seen this happen over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Don't, and I'll say it again, don't create a character that has done all these awesome, wonderful things before you even start adventuring. Okay? It doesn't make sense. You are just starting your adventure. You're starting your story. If you've done all these wonderful, awesome things, then why didn't we run your character before this all started? You see what I'm saying? Or the other thing is players want to create, oh my God, my character had been part of the war, and we went to war against the Orc nation. My character had killed all these the Goblin chieftain, and was part of the group that took over the troll lairs and all this stuff. If you have done all this stuff, why are you level first character? If you have all this experience, why are you a level 1 character? It doesn't make sense. If you've done all these other things, you would be a 10th level character, not a first level character. Now, maybe you're starting with your dungeon master. Maybe your dungeon master said, we're going to start at 10th level, so create a character that's up to 10th level, and that would be perfectly fine. But don't create a backstory about going and killing killing 100 orcs, because if you kill 100 orcs, you'd be 5th level already. You would be a first level. Don't create so much for your background, all these awesome things that you did, because it's just not going to make sense. Because remember, depending on your race, you are coming into this as a young, spry, up and coming. If you're a human, you're probably 18 to 20 years old. So you can't have traveled all across the world and sailed the seven seas and trained in the military for 6 years under Captain Govar, and then gone to war against the Orc tribe for 6 years, and then did all this thing. Now, doesn't say you have to come in as a younger person. You can come in as a 45-year-old or a 60-year-old or whatever you want to, whatever you think your character's age would be at that time. But the moral of the story is don't create all these wonderful, awesome things for your background, because if you did all these wonderful, awesome things, wouldn't be a first level character. You're not just you are just starting out. You've just got skills and powers and abilities that mortal men don't have. You've had enough basic training. If we look at medieval times here on Earth, there are a few individuals with the that would get knight training, and the rest would all be peasants, and they would, you'd be lucky enough to become a squire for a knight. So someday that maybe, just maybe, you could become a knight. It's not like everyone in the world became a knight. It's not how it worked, right? So I can't be this knight, this godly knight that rides on Pegasus and destroy dragons in my sleep, because if I did all that stuff, then I'm not a first level character. So keep it basic with things you've done with your character. Have you traveled? Have you studied a certain place? Have you done anything interesting? But don't create too much, and don't make it your background something that's more than it should be for a first level character. Again, maybe a paragraph, maybe two about things you've done. That's it. I would cut it off. I do things a little bit differently, right? I let my players, normally if I was playing a normal game, I let my characters create 5 sentences. That's it, 5 sentences about their character. That's all the information that we need to go on. And the rest they can role play in. And of course, I would have to verify and check everything of their background, because some players get into it too much and they want to create, they want to take, from the day they were born up to the day that we're playing their character. They want to tell you every single thing that happened every single day. The DM doesn't have time to try and weave all this stuff into the story. Now, that's why you need to come up with, what have you done that's been important? That is a good thing to add, because if you've done something good or you've done something important, then that should be something that adds in. But, um, trying to create a 5-page document on just the things you've done as you've grown up is not, it doesn't fit into the story of where your character is, and it doesn't make sense that you would become a first level character. Now again, if you're starting your adventure at level 5 or level 10 or whatever, then there are going to be ways for your characters to level up and give you more of a background. But at this point, you're a level 1 character normally. What have you done? If you're the starship captain of the Enterprise, think of it as season 1, uh, episode 1. We are not in the 10th season, episode 26. We're in season 1, episode 1. You don't have all these other things happen to you in your background yet, because you don't have that kind of background. You only have what happened to season 1, episode 1. So stop it at season 1, episode 1, and make sure that everything fits in with what your dungeon master has. So number 3, what has your character done? Number 4, and this is an important one, what led you to become where you're at right now when the adventure starts? What drove you towards becoming where you're at today? So wherever the current adventure setting is, whether it's on, Faerun, if you're at Waterdeep, why are you at Waterdeep? Is there a reason for you to be there? If I'm a barbarian that lived up in the north, why would my character be in Waterdeep? What drove me there? Why would my character be there? If I got to be home, taking care of my wife and my kid, and hunting every day to just put food on the table, how all of a sudden did I get to Waterdeep to now go adventuring with my buddies? See, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, maybe your northern tribe has decided to venture down to the south, and so they don't won't no longer live in the mountains to the north. Maybe you've traveled down into the grasslands now, and your tribe lives in the grasslands, and you're now an envoy to Waterdeep to see if you can secure some land from the local lords. That all makes perfect sense. But does it make perfect sense for me to be a barbarian from the north that just happens to be in the town of Waterdeep, ready for adventuring, so I can go spend, 20 years of my life adventuring now? Maybe my wife and child have died because another tribe came in, and so now I don't have any responsibilities. Maybe our tribe got wiped out. There's only a few survivors of us, so now I'm traveling to through Waterdeep, heading to the south to see if I can reunite some of the barbarian tribes down from the south, so that way we can align together and head back up and destroy those that had destroyed our village. So there's lots of things that reasons why you can be there. You just need to figure out why you're at the location you currently are. If the current setting for your sci-fi adventures on the city or on the planet of Dagobah, why is your character on Dagobah? Are they there seeking out the Jedi Master that you heard about? Or what drove you to be where you're at from all these other wonderful things? If you are, were you forced out? Why did you go to this location? Why would you leave your past behind? And that's another big one. What led you to become where you're at right now? What drove you to leave your past behind? Were you, were you sick of, why would the merchant that has it so good all of a sudden decide to travel to Waterdeep to become an adventurer? We're going to get to more, that's more question number 5, but why would the merchant be in Waterdeep? Now, possibly his father or his grandfather had sent him up there to see if he can secure uh, more trade with the merchant that is his father's company. So there's hundreds of reasons why. You just need to figure out why you're there and what is their driving force behind why you had left your past behind. Why are you now in Waterdeep if you're from somewhere else? Why are you on Dagobah? Why are you in the swamps of Dagobah instead of at, your home planet? What drove you there? If you are currently, let's say our background, we're our mage again, we're studying at the White Tower Wizards Academy, and I've grown in power, and I now decide to venture out. Why would I leave the White Wizard group behind? Is there a reason? Uh, does my organization require it of me? Maybe the wizard guilds only keep you till you turn 20 and then they kick you out the door and put you on your own. Or maybe the wizard guilds has their own quest for you, so they sent you out to try and find the white dragon, or whatever the situation may be. You need to create and find out why would your character be there. Number 4, why would your character be right where the location is at? Think about these things, because the first thing the dungeon master is going to do is ask you to describe and talk about your character to the other players. And if you, I'm here. I'm an elf. I got brown boots and green pants. I carry a bow, and I like nature. Yay. Okay, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you're in Waterdeep then, this city of thriving metropolis? Uh, I'm here because uh, I like forest, I like nature, I like hanging around with people. I'm trying to find a bear. I'm not sure. Sorry. Come back to me. Talk to the other guys first. Maybe it'll come to me. So, yeah. So find out why your character is in the current location. What drove him away from what he was doing before? Or why would he have left what he's what he had before. If I'm a barbarian from the north and I have to feed my wife and my child by hunting and capturing game and for my wife and my tribe, if if I have to leave, it's going to be extremely hard for me, for my character. Why? What forced me to abandon my wife, abandon my child? You know, what could possibly force me to be there? And I'm talking a lot about number 5. So let's go ahead and get to number 5. Why did you decide to become an adventurer? What drove you to become an adventurer? Because you're no longer a sea captain. You're no longer a, a budding wizard apprentice. You're no longer a squire. You're no longer some. Uh, you're no longer a traveling merchant. You left all that behind. You've now decided to become an adventurer. So, why? What drove you to become an adventurer? What driving force do you have to risk your life for whatever the adventure is that your dungeon master is setting up for you? If you are currently, like I said, if you're currently a barbarian from the north, you have a wife and a child, you need to bring them food. How all of a sudden are you going to be justified to become an adventurer? There has to have been something that changed. What was that thing that changed that made you become an adventurer? If I have got a wealthy father that owns a great merchant company and I'm doing well, and I'm traveling around and making plenty of money, why would I leave all that behind to become an adventurer? Why? Why would I risk my life? Why would I risk my life to complete these other quests? Something must have happened. And why would you leave your other life behind, which is, companion? Why did you decide to become an adventurer? You're risking your life and for these quests. Why did you leave what you had behind? Like I said, if I'm a wizard in the wizard tower and I'm learning all these things to become a great magic user and powerful, why do I leave it then? If I would stay there and study for 10 or 20 more years, I could become a ultra powerful magic user. Or if I'm in Starfleet Academy and I'm just trying to think of the different ranks. If I'm not the ship captain, but I'm learning to become a ship captain. Why would I leave Starfleet Academy if I'm not? If I want to be a starship captain, why would I have left Starfleet Academy? Why didn't I stay in that to gain enough experience and enough training to become a starship captain? Why all of a sudden have you left your life behind to do these other things now? If maybe your life was horrible, it was terrible. Maybe they kicked you out of Starfleet Academy because you kept bucking the system, or they found out you were cheating on one of your exams or whatever the situation is, but there must be something that has caused you to leave your other life behind and now driving you to become an adventurer. What is driving you? And that goes right into question number 6. What is your current goals for your character? You don't just become an adventurer to become an adventurer. What is your goals? What do you want to become? Do you want to become a starship captain? Do you want to become the most wise wizard on the planet? Do you want to seek out and destroy every evil creature? Do you wish to become, I'm just trying to think of things off my head. Do you want to destroy the clan that had destroyed your clan? Took out your, village? was destroyed by another clan. So is your goal to get enough power so you can go seek revenge on them? What's your driving motivation? What do you have that's driving you to become an adventurer, right? What what is your goal? What do you want to do? You know, what do you want to get out of being an adventurer? Okay, adventuring is hard and dangerous work, but it's also rewarding because you are risking life and limb to gain more experience, to gain more power, to gain more magic items, to gain riches, you know. So what is it you're trying to get out of becoming an adventurer? Are you trying to get enough wealth that you can buy a plot of land so that you can move your tribe from the mountains down into the forest? Or are you trying to get enough money together so you have enough money to start your own merchant business so you can ruin your father's business because when you were growing up, your father was mean and nasty to you, maybe sexually molested you, or whatever the situation is. You want to get enough money together to start your own business so you can crush your father's business, knock him down, see him begging on the street, and kick dirt into his face and say, "Father, that is for what you did to me." What is your driving force behind becoming an adventurer? Are you trying to seek? Are you the white wizard from the, or you are from the White Wizard Tower, and your masters there treated you like you didn't belong. You didn't have enough power. You don't have the strength. You don't have the intelligence that they need. So they kicked you out. And so what you're trying to do is find a magic item powerful enough that you can go back there and teach them that yes, you have become more powerful than them. Lots of ideas. It's only up to your imagination and your creativity to come up with this stuff. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. I've got notes on, what is your current character goal? What do you want to become? What do you want to do? What do you want to be out of adventure? But I don't have a list of things that I'm coming up off the top of my head right now. I'm just doing this off, just winging it. You can sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and start writing down notes about things and your character. Uh, and you can come up with all these awesome, wonderful, great stories about why or how you're doing certain things for your characters. So, again, the six things. Location. Location is going to affect many, many things. Your views on life, your views on death, your views on uh, how to interact with people, can determine whether you are friendly or very selfish because you had to be selfish, or you wouldn't have survived as long as you are. You grew up on the streets as an orphan boy. The only way for you to survive was to steal every single day of your life from the merchants so you could earn a couple loaves of bread so you can feed yourself. And if you got caught, you had no one to stand up for you. You had no family. You would have been hanged at the gallows for sure. So every day for you is a life and death struggle to survive growing up. That's why I'm such a good sneaker. That's why I'm so good at hiding in the shadows. It's not because it's something that was taught to me. It was a matter of if I couldn't hide in the shadows, the guards were going to find me and hang me and I would be dead. That's why I study shadows. I notice every little thing about shadows. You can start to see how you understand when you start asking these questions about your character. You can suddenly start to put the pieces together. Okay? With that one story we just talked about, the rogue location. Well, we grew up on the streets of in the slums of some city. Well, we can just further that by deciding where the location of this adventure is going to be, and I can choose a city that's going to be in that adventure. So now we know I grew up in these slums in the city. Um, in whatever location it happens to be, the dungeon master is running this story, whether it's Waterdeep or Daggerford or if whatever setting you have. Okay. Family. I already told you about my family right there in that one sentence. I didn't have a family. I was an orphan, right? So I don't know my family. I don't know my mother. I don't know my father. They abandoned me when I was young, 3 years old. They just left me there to rot, right? So there, you understand where my family is. I'm no one important. My family might be important. Maybe that's why I was left behind. I don't know because my family, that is going to be a question mark, because you don't know that, okay? Because when you're only 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years old and you're left on the streets to fend for yourself, what has your character done? Well, pretty much in that story, we know that my character has done nothing but try to survive. That's all he's been able to do. He hasn't traveled very far because I don't have the resources that would take to go from town to town to town to town. Basically, I got to earn my own way. I got to earn my own living for myself by stealing from others. And I'm trying to get enough I'm trying to get enough food for my belly every single day. I don't have the provisions to go 6 days journey to get to the next town. I would die along the way. So I probably haven't done much traveling. I haven't done any studying because I don't have the resources to do that. Um, and I haven't done anything important. So what led you to be where you're at right now? Well, I already told you why. Because I'm in the town of wherever the dungeon master starts his Waterdeep, and I'm trying to earn a living, trying to find a way. Have you decided? Why did you decide to become an adventurer? Well, I've decided to become an adventurer so I can no longer have to worry about getting food every day of my life. I want to be an adventurer because I need the money. I need the money to be able to buy myself a place to live or buy myself a plot of land or wherever you need the money for. I wish to buy my own business now and give back to all those people that I had stole. Whatever, that's we didn't fill in that blank. And then what is our current character's goals? Well, we just talked about that, and that was like I said, boom, just off the top of my head. Right now, we got the thief that was growing up in the slums, and then that's kind of that's kind of commonplace or whatever. But maybe we expand on that and we figure out how we can change it to make it a little more interesting or a little bit more way to fit into the story. I was just again as I'm talking, my lips are moving, but inside my brain is still going. So I like the thing that I was talking about earlier. Maybe, okay, just maybe my character is a bastard son from one of the local lords, and that lord didn't want anyone knowing that I was around, so he had my mother unfortunately disappeared, and I was left orphaned on the streets, kicked out of the mansion that I grew up at until I was 6 years old. So now I'm starting to put things together, right? So now my character's goals are to get enough money so that I can seek revenge against my bastard father, right? So my views would be a little bit skewed. Stealing for my character, if I steal somebody's life of bread to feed myself, or stole some pie on one of the baker's shelves when he wasn't looking, it's not so I can go and sell it to someone else and try and make a profit. It was for me to eat and enjoy and keep my strength up, keep my energy up. It was for my living. If I didn't do that, I would be dead, right? So now I lost train of thought. What was because things are rolling around in there again. Where was I going with this? It was the point I was trying to make was we're trying. We now understand that my views of stealing are going to be completely different than the barbarian that lives up in the north, right? And he has to fight for everything that he's got as well. The merchant, So we all view stealing differently. I don't think of it as an evil act. I think it is as a desperation act from desperate people. I don't think of it as an evil act. It's an act of desperation. If someone steals for their own being, is that an evil act? No, I don't think it's an evil act because I did it myself to stay alive. I feel bad about it, but it was either that or Paris. My views are people should be more open and willing to help those in need. That's my view of things. The merchants like, the merchant son is like, screw you. You have to earn. Our business don't run on giveaways, my friend. That's not the way business works. We buy things, we mark up the price, and we sell them to other people. That's the way things work. Everything that we lose between the transactions is a deficit, so we take a loss. Anybody that steals should be hanged in the gallows because that's profit off of my plate, right? I can't afford, my business can't run on handouts. So totally different views based upon their history and the way you grew up and all the things that you create for your character. So when your dungeon master asks you, a situation comes up in the game where one of the characters has to go, maybe your quest is to go steal from one of the lordly manors had stolen some paperwork that shows that the king has an illegitimate child with someone, and they're holding this as blackmail against the king. So the king is, oh, see again, just so the king is asked for you guys to go in and steal that paperwork so they can't blackmail the king anymore. And so when you meet with the person that sets up this arrangement, you can have a better understanding of what you feel like your character would be like. The merchant's son might say, well, this is stupid. I think what you should do is just buy it off him, pay the ransom and be done with it, and then you don't have to worry about that. While the thief who was struggling and stealing to save his life every day of his life, he's like, yes, I agree we should go in and steal this because this is a worthy cause. Whatever the situation may be, maybe the thief says, this is not, this is maybe the barbarian's thinking, well, this is not an honorable cause for stealing. That's not honorable enough. If you have to steal to feed your family, then yes, it's one thing. But if you have to steal just because someone owes you money, then that is something I don't want to deal with. So you can understand, and again, this is just off the top of my head, there could be a lot more to it, obviously, but things you should know about your character. So that way, when these situations come up, you know how your character is going to react. This isn't you reacting. This isn't you. This is how your character reacts. But if you don't know their location, and you don't know where they grew up, and you don't have an idea of what their family was like, and their size of their family, if you don't know what your character has done in your past, you don't know where they've been. You don't know if they've traveled. You don't know if they've done any training. You don't know if they've done anything important. Uh, you don't know what led you to where you're currently at, why your character's at Dagobah, or you don't know why your character's in Waterdeep. You don't know why you decided to become an adventurer, and you don't have any current goals, then you shouldn't be playing a role-playing game because you're not role-playing another character because you are just, you don't have any connection with the other character that you've made. Role-playing game is about creating a story with your friends and your dungeon master based upon your character. If you don't have this information about your character, then you can't make good role-playing decisions about what your character would do. How are you going to know what your character is going to do if you don't have this information? Again, I'm not saying you have to create a 20-page document that has this information. In fact, as a dungeon master, I won't take it if it's a 20-page document. Like one page, 5 paragraphs, that's it. That's all I need. That's all I want from a player. I don't want you to give me pages and pages and pages and pages of information. I want you to give me the basic information that I need as the dungeon master about your character. I don't need to know that you have 18 uncles, and your one uncle is a bartender at the Hollywood Inn on the corner of blah 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 and Dizzlebob, and that your aunt is 62 years old. She has 3 children. They are Johnny, Billy, and Billy number 2. Whatever I don't need all that information, and you shouldn't be worried about that information. You need to know general information about how your character would react in a certain situation based upon your history, with your location, with your family, what you've done, why you're at where you're at, why you become an adventurer, and what your current goals are. The 6 most important things. Well, this will be the end of episode number 6. Episode number 7, we're going to build us a character from scratch. I'm going to go in completely naked on this one. Well, I'll have clothes on, but my mind will be blank. That's what I'm trying to get at. My mind will be blank, and I will just wing a character together, and we'll see what we can create in the next episode. So thanks for joining us. Until the next time we get together, what's your story? See you next time.